to talk about, I'm just giving people a chance to come in. Thank you. To talk about Cornerstones. And if those of you, I think I know most of you, but I'm Judy Polizzotti. I'm on the Social Justice Committee, and I'm also here as a board member of Cornerstones representing UUCR. So I'd like to introduce Sarah Casey. Sarah is the Director of Faith-Based Engagement at Cornerstones. She completed her Master's of Theological Studies from Harvard Divinity School in May of 2020, and her Bachelor's of Arts from Smith College in 2016. She was born in Boston, but raised in Northern Virginia. She maintains her Boston sports loyalties. Yay, Sarah. I agree. And she has always had a passion for helping faith institutions live out their calling in their communities. At the start of the pandemic, she was the director of Serve Ministries at Flores United Methodist Church in Herndon. She began her position at Cornerstones in April of 2022. And before I hand it over to Sarah, I'd like to first hand over a check from UUCR, which is our donation to help Cornerstones and to support them as with all the tremendous work that they do in the community. So she can now tell you more about that.
Good morning. Thank you all so much for having me. I am delighted to be here and also excited to be back in a UU space. As Judy mentioned, I went to Harvard Divinity School, which is kind of one of the crucibles of Unitarian Universalism. Ralph Waldo Emerson, big fan. So thank you all for having me. I'm going to go through some of the Cornerstones priorities, give you some information. I don't want to just talk at you, so I hope this can be a bit more of a conversation as well. As Judy mentioned, I'm here to talk about some of the Cornerstones priorities. What I'd love to do is just start with a little general information about Cornerstones. So Mike, if you could hit our next slide. Thank you. So Cornerstones has been in operation for over 50 years. There's a lot of text on the screen, but the things I want you to take are the purposefully working with a diverse network of donors, advocates, and volunteers who are deeply committed to strengthening families living and working across the Dulles Corridor. So as you can see there, we've got over 1,800 individual donors, 6,000 volunteers and advocates, over 100 faith-based groups, and 75 annual partners. And I won't call on Ralph to tell me if any of my information is incorrect or not. I'm just going to look away and we're going to assume we're all good. So a few of the areas that Cornerstones focuses on are strong, sustainable, and enriching communities. So we've got a few focus areas here, and if Mike, we could hit the next one, that'd be great. Our areas include sustainable housing, healthy people, economic self-sufficiency, and connected individuals. So these four principles really ground us in the work that we do. So you can see that there we try to do affordable and accessible housing, care management and other specialized services, including social work intake, affordable health insurance, behavioral health services for adults, children, and youth. We have our economic self-sufficiency programs for financial assistance, building assets through education and early employment supports, and affordable childcare and early education opportunities. All of this is an effort to create affordable and accessible places for people in our community, including public transportation, access to human services, and building community voice and leaders. So three of the pillars of Cornerstones are stability, empowerment, and hope. And so I'd like to just give you some numbers. I'm not going to have you glaze over with these. We're not going to spend a lot of time. I'll make sure these slides are available to everyone so that you don't have to take furious notes here now. We have a few different areas that we do work in the community. One being our Embry-Rucker Community Shelter, which I know that this congregation is familiar with through donations, through your hypothermia prevention program that you offer meals. This is that group of people. So in the last few years, we've served 850 households total, which includes 71 families and 138 children. I think that's a number that I find quite sobering sometimes, to think that there are that many children in this county, in this area, who are in need of our help. But thanks to the generous donations of both time, talent, and treasure from congregations like Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston, you're making a difference. Yes?
Over how many years?
This one is 2020 to 2023.
So basically 3 years.
3 years, just about.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. One of the things that we did during the pandemic, so May 2020 to March 22, was our Cupid sites, which was quarantine, protection, isolation, and decompression. And so what this was is we noticed there was just such a huge need for people to find a safe place to quarantine. People who were homeless, people who had jobs that maybe made it difficult for them to hold down a place to live. And so through that, the county and Cornerstones had this program where people could stay in hotels and could do that safely. So that ran for about the 2 years of March 2020 to May of 2022. Another area that Cornerstones worked in during the pandemic was especially around eviction prevention. Some of you may have heard about the ERA, the CARES Act, which were federal funds dedicated towards preventing homelessness, preventing eviction, and preventing homelessness. Cornerstones was one of Fairfax County's distributor of those funds, and so over the, I think, first 2 years of the pandemic, Cornerstones helped distribute $4.7 million in housing and utilities and funds. So this is keeping people from defaulting on their bills, from not being able to pay their rent, from being evicted, from not being able to pay their utilities. That touched about 581 households for the CARES Act. And I know this is a lot of jargon, lots of stuff. We'll get through it, I promise. But I just want you to be able to see the impact that Cornerstones has, that this is really something that, despite the affluence in our community, this exists too. This is something that is often harder to see. These are folks that are working. These are people who are trying to hold down their jobs and are just existing at that cliff of being very close to being homeless. And so the generosity and the time that partners put into Cornerstones is what helps these people stay housed. Our Assistance Services and Pantry program, which I think is familiar to this group, you guys have donated for several years. That is our pantry program, and you can see all the numbers there. Average of 450 households per month are assisted from Cornerstones' pantry. About 1,000 households receive 10,000 bags of food and toiletries, valued at almost $300,000, which is just remarkable to me that is the generosity of our community. I want you to keep these numbers in mind as we continue, because one of the most exciting things about 2023 at Cornerstones is our Free from Hunger Food Empowerment Center. So keep this in mind. I don't know if many of you have been to our ASAP pantry, but it's small. It is tiny. The work that they do over there to make magic happen, I think they all need to get into interior decorating and things like that, because the way they can make that happen with such a small space, it's actually magic. In addition to stability, Cornerstones is looking to create empowerment with our neighbors. That includes our 2 sites, the Laurel Learning Center and Connections for Hope. So Laurel Learning Center provides comprehensive family services, developmental childcare programs for infants, toddlers, preschoolers, and grade schoolers. Our Connections for Hope program brings together nonprofits, community organizations, and government agencies to provide valuable programs and services to families. Where I want to focus a little bit more time now is on the Hope section. So 2 of the things that I want to talk about now are our advocacy efforts and our Opportunity Neighborhoods program. So just this past week, Judy and a few other members of Cornerstone's advocates team, we had the opportunity to go to the Fairfax County budget hearings for the upcoming budget. And we were able to speak on behalf of Cornerstones, on behalf of our neighbors, to advocate for the allocation of funds to ending homelessness, creating affordable housing, and investing in our nonprofits. So Judy was among, I think, about 15 of us who got to go, and we held up signs for affordable housing. We sat in front of the entire Board of Supervisors of Fairfax County, and it was really this demonstration of advocacy with and not for our communities. One of the things Judy and I were just talking about earlier is, how can we help the county and other agencies see the barriers to having neighbors actually attend those meetings? So as you'll see, our advocacy platform is amplifying our efforts to promote local, state, and federal, and private sector policies that build equity and create meaningful change. I've also included a couple flyers in the back about our advocacy committees and the task forces that I'll be talking about in just a moment. But this is one of our priorities for 2023. How do we get people involved to come to learn from our neighbors, to work with our neighbors, not just for them, not on their behalf, but really with them, about how we can advance equity and community change, especially on this local and state level. Every January, we go down to Richmond to advocate at the General Assembly, where we talk to our elected officials and tell them more about Cornerstones, tell them more about the experiences of our neighbors, and what we hear from them are the needs that they are advocating for in their communities. Our Opportunity Neighborhoods program exists in Reston and Herndon. I don't know why it's Rest on and not Herndon, but it's not my bailiwick. But in that organization, community leaders and businesses and faith-based groups can come together and work with parents and schools in focused and strategic ways to promote and improve outcomes for children, youth, and families. So that leads me to our task forces. This is kind of an invitation to get involved. I know task force sounds like a big word. If there's any of us who watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I think another way that we could phrase this is do groups, but anyway. So our advocacy and action community task forces are 4 task forces that we've established out of our advocacy forum last fall. So we gathered about 70 local advocates to share information on emerging and ongoing challenges in our community. This is not a space where Cornerstone says, here's a problem, find a solution. This is a space where Cornerstones brought advocates, other nonprofits, community members, people whom this affects directly and deeply into the same room to talk about what these issues were, to talk about affordable housing, to talk about economic security, and to really say what are the issues that we're seeing and what in this room of intelligent and compassionate and driven people do we see as some solutions. So the few of them that I've listed here, I'm not going to read them to you, but they are available on the handout in the back. We have stable and affordable housing, economic security, education and school success, and health and well-being. And so these are 4 task forces that I would love for you to learn a little bit more about. The meetings are open to anybody. You don't need to sign up for a long-term commitment. Please just drop into one of them and learn what that group is doing, because it's really important and grassroots work. So I would invite you to take a look at that. So in 2023, moving forward, 2 of the biggest areas that Cornerstones is working is in affordable housing and in food security. So affordable housing in Northern Virginia, we know, is one of the most expensive housing markets in the United States. I think one of our statistics says that for rent, the average 1-bedroom rent in this county is, at the end of the year, $25,000. If you make minimum wage, you can't afford that. It's just not possible. And so this year, Cornerstones is actually moving into creation of building and maintaining some affordable housing. So we have 2 projects in the works right now. One is at Tuscarora, which is in Leesburg, and one which will be at West Ox and Route 50, where we're going to be building permanent supportive housing. So this is a huge undertaking, and I do not know all of the logistics because they tried to show me some maps and some numbers, and I said, that's wonderful, you just tell me where to sign up and where to go, but please don't ask me to look at that. So I wanted to share this with you just briefly. So the first project that is on the bottom is the one closest to having the ground broken on, which are the apartments at Tuscarora Crossing in Leesburg. So we're creating 180 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments dedicated for 60, 50, and 30% area median income, with 18 permanent supportive housing units. And the difference there, permanent supportive housing is for folks who have been chronically homeless. There is a certain definition that you have to meet for that. It's a certain number of years without housing, a certain number of experiences, not always mental health, not always inability to get employment, but that is a unique set of experiencing homelessness, permanent supportive housing. And so Cornerstones will provide on-site case management and resident services. So this isn't, let's build this, hope it all works out, come talk to us in a few years if you really need anything. This is, we're going to build this and we're going to stay. We're going to stay in these communities and show up for our neighbors. That one at Tuscarora is, I think, about to have its groundbreaking later this year. And the one that is being a little bit more in the works right now is the one at West Ox, which will be 34 apartments exclusively for permanent supportive housing. So what I'd love to invite you to do is continue to learn about this with Cornerstones. Learn what these apartments are going to be and what they're not going to be. These are not going to be shelters. These are not going to be places that we just prop up and say, really hope it works out, call us in a few years if you need anything. Cornerstones is committed to remaining on site for these people and these families. And that is a huge investment in this community, and it's also a huge neighborhood and community task. I mean, as I'm sure you can imagine, having these built up in new neighborhoods is going to cause a lot of questions. The communities where we build these are going to have founded and reasonable questions. And so we'd invite you to learn more about us through advocacy, about how your voice can serve in those questions, how you can show up as an advocate for this, saying, I recognize the need for affordable housing in my community. I recognize the need for permanent supportive housing, and I want to know more about how Cornerstones is doing that through the supportive housing model and not through the model of let's just build it and hope it works out. So one of the reasons this is essential is because our neighbors are struggling. I want to show you a short video here about some of our neighbors who have experienced homelessness and who are in that group that is needing and unable to find affordable housing. So Mike, if we could play that first one, that would be lovely.
My mom always did everything for us. My mom was a single mom too. As a mother, you gotta do what you gotta do for your kids. So growing up as adolescents, they did pretty good in school. My son, he always, I don't know, he just had a lot of energy at that one time. He matured a lot too. Destiny, she always had this bubbly attitude and just smiling all the time, you know. When I used to go to her school, they said, we love Destiny. She just talks and smiles all the time. And you would love Destiny. Fall in love with her first time you meet her, so she's the sweetest girl ever.
She's always influencing me to do other things. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I went in the shelter in 2012. And it was hard trying to keep two little kids together and living with other families. I mean, I know they probably didn't know why we was staying here and there or with family members. I think they really didn't even realize or pay much attention to that.
The best part of actually working at Cornerstones is helping residents actually find housing. They're able to get their keys, they're able to provide some sort of stability for their family, and they're able to provide further education. We have units that come available. We reach out to our shelter and we allow them to give us applications in order for people to be interviewed to enter into our program.
And then once I got into Cornerstone, they really helped me, and they helped me get financially stable. You know, I took classes with them, financial classes, typing classes, helped me grow into the woman I am. First time when we moved into our new place, we was excited. The kids was running to each room. This is my room. So, you know, it was exciting, you know, to them and to me, you know what I'm saying? Where to put stuff. I'm gonna have Christmas with just me and my kids. So, you know, it was a happy moment. I was excited for me and my kids.
Once I got to this neighborhood, there's so many memories. In this area, we'd play soccer, or I'd just meet new people that would come into the neighborhood. Some of them would go to my school. It was such a great experience living here. That's mainly all I could say.
So thank God, Cornerstones They help me. It's nothing like your own space.
Represent the individuals and the families that this congregation has been helping for years. Through your gift for kids, through your Thanksgiving boxes, hypothermia prevention, everything that you do goes to families and individuals like Cheryl and her children. So thank you for that support, and thank you for that continued care that you take for our community members. The next thing I am delighted to tell you about is Cornerstones' Free from Hunger Food Rescue Center. In addition to my title as Director of Faith-Based Engagement and Community Outreach, we love to have things at Cornerstones have like 18 words after it just to make it more fun. So this one is the Food Rescue and Empowerment Enterprise, or Free from Hunger Food Hub. So we have a video to show you about this. This is just an incredible opportunity to take what we are doing to the next level, to work with partners, to do food rescue, and to have a huge impact in the Dulles Corridor area. This food hub is opening later this year, and I'd love to turn it over to a couple of my colleagues to tell you a little bit about it.
The Free from Hunger Center, which shorthand we call the Food Hub, is this idea of an area where we can collect and rescue food and give it out to pantries.
We have a very small pantry, and the service area is very limited. And we get tons and tons and tons of food that we have to store in the most unique places. Our primary focus will be on supporting those other pantries who do not have the capacity. This is an opportunity to receive much larger donations than we're capable of handling, and being able to have that food stored here, and then when it's needed back at their locations, we can work out the logistics to get that food back to them. So that's where we see our role, is really expanding the capacity for all of those other food assistance groups. So this is where we are now. You can see the dock doors in the back, and that's where the food will be coming in. There'll be racks parallel to those doors. You'll see there's a huge space for our refrigerator freezer area, and that's where we're going to accommodate things that many of the other food banks cannot handle.
We really strive to make sure it's hopeful tomorrow today for all the residents of Reston, Fairfax County, and those communities that we serve at Cornerstones.
Cada vez que abrimos esa caja y vemos la comida, tantas cosas sorpresas que trae, nos sentimos alegres, nos sentimos felices, porque nos llena de alegría a mis hijos, a mis maridos, a toda mi familia.
I've always said, hunger knows no boundaries. Whether we're providing food for Fairfax or Loudoun County residents, it doesn't matter to us, as long as we're supporting those partner organizations and making sure that, again, we're collaborating innovatively. That's part of our values. We're going to live those values each and every day.
About this, you guys. I mean, you saw the picture of the pantry that we currently have. It's a closet. I think that's the kindest way to put it. It's a closet. And so to be able to step foot in this warehouse that you can see the possibility, the refrigeration space, the freezer space, the racks that are going to be available, and just the footprint that this can have in Fairfax and Loudoun County. We have numerous faith partners who run their own food distributions, but they don't have the ability to store that food. Or they get donations of produce, but they don't have a place they can put it in a refrigerator so it'll keep until their next distribution. This is a way that we can work together to make sure that that is not happening and that healthy, quality food is being dispersed throughout our counties. This is a Cornerstones hub, but this is not a Cornerstone-specific program. This is something that we're going to be doing in partnership with other nonprofits, with the counties, with faith-based groups, and so I celebrate the work that has gone into this, and I also pray for continued support, because opening a warehouse is a big deal. It is a lot of work. work. There's going to be a ton of volunteer opportunities, and so I'm excited to keep talking with you about that as we get forward on that. The opening is going to be, I believe, later this summer, early this fall, and so I will make sure that UUCR is kept apprised of the openings, when the volunteer opportunities become available, and how all the progress is being made on that. This is just a little bit jargony. I'll make sure it's available to you, and please trust me that the dates have changed because supply issues, everything like that. The phases have changed a little bit, but we are on track for opening later this year. So how can you be in, oh yes, go ahead.
How do you plug into the capital area food bank?
So the Capital Area Food Bank has locations in Lorton.
You gotta speak.
Sure. So it has, Capital Area Food Bank has a location in Lorton and a location in Maryland. So groups in this area that are looking to get food from Capital Area Food Bank have to travel a large distance or have it delivered. So it's my understanding that Food for Others, Capital Area Food Bank, they will be able to have food at this location so that partners can come pick it up there. It can be distributed out of that, not distributed at the warehouse, but picked up for distribution through our food hub. So it's a partnership. It's not Cornerstones food specific. It is how can we partner having this space to make sure that the people who need food in our area can get it.
So, if I understand you correctly,
Yeah.
so right now, I drive into DC and I pick up food for 14 families typically on Saturday. Okay? Bring it back and it gets distributed. So what you're saying is, once this is set up, we could just drive out to Sterling instead of driving into DC.
That's the hope, yes.
Okay.
And for other programs as well. So programs that churches do distributions. If you are coming to us and saying, we're doing a food distribution, but we don't have any rice, Cornerstones can say, oh, we just got a shipment of it, come grab 30 pounds of it. So we're figuring out what the best way for partnership in this is so that it's not ownership of Cornerstones, but that we have a place where food distributors in this area of Fairfax and Loudoun counties, don't have to travel a bonkers distance to pick up food to help people in this area. The food hubs at Lorton and in Maryland are wonderful. They're just far. It's just hard to get there. And so with the refrigeration and freezer space that we're going to have, we're really hopeful that that's going to help get quality, good food into our communities quickly. Wonderful. So just the last slide about how you can get involved. Continue to advocate with us. Learn more about our community task forces. Continue your support, and thank you so much for your generosity of today's donation. That is just wonderful. And with our seasonal drives like back to school backpacks, Thanksgiving food, gift cards for kids, hypothermia prevention, which just ended, but I am assured by my colleague Nate King, you guys are already on the list for next year, which is just tremendous that we can be ending the cycle now, and you guys are already set up to serve next hypothermia prevention season. I want you all to be incredibly proud of that because as people that work with volunteers, and Ralph, you know this too, having that assurance that you're on our team and that you're with our community 6, 12 months in advance is a weight off of our shoulders. And continue to share our message, please. So join Cornerstones in sending messages to elected officials, urging them to support our community agendas. So my whole spiel today is thank you for what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing, and please sign up to learn more about our advocacy task forces and our awesome food hub that will be opening later this year. Thank you so much. Yes, I would love to take questions.
Do you know the exact philosophies for the hub development in Leesburg?
Not the one in Leesburg. I don't know. I can find out though and send that. I think it's Tuscarora Crossing, which I think is close to the outlets, but I'm not entirely sure. The one on 50, oh, Judy? The one on Route 50 is going to be kind of where West Ox and Route 50 meet. I think there's a Pender, Harris Teeter, there's a couple other things right around there, which is great because there's a police department, there's a hospital nearby, there's a fire department, there's a pharmacy, there's lots of resources that are going to be available to neighbors who move in there.
Would you mention how we're advocating for the Henry Rucker shelter in the new development? that's
Yes.
happening here? I know Carrie Wilson, the president of Cornerstone, has spoken to the group, the committee that's working on that.
Sure. So there is a lot of talk around Reston Town Center North redevelopment. So that area right around the government center, the Reston Library, and the Embry Rucker shelter. It's my understanding that there is money allocated for it. There just hasn't been a developer who has created the project to do all of that work. Recently, last fall, there was a proposal put forward by one organization named Folger Pratt to redevelop that area. However, it did not include plans to redevelop the shelter. And that shelter is owned by Fairfax County, and Cornerstones is the subcontractor who operates it. So if it were in a perfect world, that shelter would be renovated, that shelter would be up and running at top capacity, but it needs a renovation. And so what we'd love to do is keep you guys apprised when people do come up with proposals to redevelop that Reston Town Center North, to listen to what Cornerstones and our neighbors' perspective is. Is this a project that's going to help benefit the redevelopment of the shelter? Will they renovate it? Will there be plans included for it? And so what we did last fall was we sent a letter to some of the supervisors saying, we love this plan, but there has to be something in there for redevelopment of the shelter. So having that advocacy campaign of people writing emails, sending letters on behalf of the community saying, yes, redevelopment sounds great. Please don't forget the shelter. Please don't forget the people who live here and the ways that we need to make their lives, the quality of life there as high as we possibly can. So right now there's no plan. The Folger-Pratt plan did fall through to be developed, but as we keep hearing more, if there are plans to develop it, through our advocacy newsletter, through your positions on the board, we'll make sure that UUCR has all the information about how to make your voice heard in that, advocating for our residents in the shelter. Sometimes it's hurry up and wait, which is a bit rough when it comes to advocacy, but learning this between now and then so that when you do come up to a time where there's an opportunity to advocate for something is something that I highly encourage. Our Director of Advocacy, Amanda Caron, is a wonderful person. She runs these really well, and she's one of those people that does the work because she believes in it, and I think that is essential to this work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to... Thank you. I've left a few flyers for advocacy in the back. I'm happy to hand out my card with my contact information. Ralph, I'm sorry I didn't let you get up here and do your portion of the talk. I think that would have made him uncomfortable. But thank you all so much, and thank you again for this generosity. It's truly wonderful, and we appreciate it so much. So thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.